So first of all, my name is Amir Amedi. I'm professor here at Reichman, both in the medical school and in the psychology school, and also a co-founder and chief scientist at REMEPI. And I'm going to talk today about AI and the brain. Now, why is it important to talk about this topic? Well, one, we are using it a lot. So the question is there any outcomes on how our brain function? And I'm going to talk on the first part of the talk about the MIT study that I'm sure all of you heard, that had like crazy headlines in New York Times and other that's using AI would rotten and decline our brain. Yeah, so we'll make a deep dive for 5 minutes about this research because it's actually a bit more complicated story if you dive into the details of the actual research. Then I'm going to show you our own research of using digital and AI in order to do the opposite, to try and fight brain degeneration. So we are all heard about Alzheimer, Parkinson, other neurodegenerative disease, but actually each and every one of you are losing 10,000 neurons. Each neuron have tens of thousands of connections in the brain. So we are losing our brain with age, and the question is, can we slow this down, or even stop it, or even reverse it, okay? And then use the power of AI in medicine to extend lives, yeah? That's happening already. In the third part, each part will be 5 minutes, no worry. We will talk about the future of medicine and show how to use digital and AI to combat disease, and I'm going to present results of the first clinical trial of combining the two to double the effect of the drugs that is used in Parkinson to have a beneficial effect on the brain. So this is the part. So this is the famous study by MIT, and basically this study, what they did was to follow 3 groups of students that are asked, like in the States, you have SAT, you need to write like essays, yeah? And they needed every several days to write new essays. And the bottom line was that the group that used AI and ChatGPT make them dumb, in a nutshell, and make their brain connectivity, because they actually added measures to track down the connectivity in the brain, in the cognitive systems, in the memory systems, and so on and so forth, and show that their brain function less and less and less good in compared to the other 2 groups. So it's created a lot of headlines all over the world, and actually if you dive down into the details of the study, you find that the main part, which was the second part of the study, showed completely the opposite results, okay? All the newspapers ignored this part, besides one in their marker by Ruti Levy. You can follow this. So what do they actually do in this study? So the lead author was Natalia Kasamia from MIT, and she basically, as I said, they wrote essays and they developed for 3 groups and compared them. And they tracked down, 1, the quality of the essays. 2, they measured, using behavioral measures, their cognitive abilities for memory, for attention, for focus, and so on and so forth. And 3rd, they followed their brain connectivity. So basically, how strong, just like in AI, what is most important is the weight and connection between the units. In the brain, it's exactly the same thing. It was actually inspired by the brain. The first models followed how the brain works and changing the weights, the strength of the connection between units, by the learning process. So it's exactly the same thing with LLMs. And they measured what happened in the brain while they are each one of these groups. So there were 3 groups. The first group, old school. Every few days they had to write an essay on a different topic, yeah? Second group, kind of old school plus. They could use like Google search and so on and so forth, like search engines to improve the quality of their essay. And the third group was the LLM group, okay? And what they found is that, first of all, initially, it looks really good in the LLM group. The assay were great, and it works fine. But as the study continued for the following weeks, the quality of the assays were, so people started to get lazy, so they used mainly copy paste, yeah? Their cognitive function started to decline, and their brain connectivity became weaker and weaker. So they are losing the quality of the brain, yeah? Exactly what we see in cognitive decline, subjective cognitive decline, mild cognitive impairment, and Alzheimer, where we see that the connectivity of the brain of an Alzheimer patient is 15 years older than their actual age in terms of when you measure the connectivity. Actually, connectivity is like telomeres in the genes. You can know what is the actual age of the person, and if he's sick or has some cognitive decline, his brain will look older. So this is really bad, and this is what the news captured, and this is why you had all these headlines. But it's a 100 pages, and by the way, it's the first work by this MIT group that they didn't send for peer review. They just uploaded it to an archive, and they said that the results are so alarming that we wanted to make sure, questions in the end, okay? We wanted to make sure that everyone is aware, like the previous lecture, it's have a tremendous impact, and we don't want people to use it wrongly in kindergarten, and so on and so forth. Okay, so to summarize the first part, weaker neural connectivity, under engagement, lower memory recall, lower ownership, and lower ability to quote. They actually didn't know what they are doing, and their brain started to go down. So that was the headlines. But the actually bigger part of this study is that they did a second stage to this experiment. And in the second stage, they did one tweak, okay? The LLM group, they said, first you need to write your own draft of the essay, and now go to LLM and improve it, okay? And again, they had control groups and so on and so forth, follow the cognitive, follow the brain connections, follow the quality, the ownership. All the results completely opposite, okay? So improved cognition, improved quality, improved brain connectivity. Nobody looked at this second part, okay? And so basically, it's not about if LLMs are good or bad, it's how we use them. And if we use them smartly, in this case in education, they can improve the brain. So okay, so this is the first part, 5 minutes. Now the question is, can we take LLMs and actually fight brain degeneration? Yeah? And can we make ourselves, by the way, the brain, as I will show you here, control everything. Control our emotion, our personality, but as I will show you here, control our immune system, control our age, control all of these things. So if we can improve, just in LLMs, the weights in the brain and the connectivity, we can slow down Alzheimer, subjective cognitive decline. I will show you results. But maybe also for people like us that's still not sick, by the way, by the age of 80, like over half of the people will have cognitive decline and early stages or late stages of Alzheimer's. So we really need to fight it quickly. And we should do it because I don't know if you actually saw it this morning, and I uploaded it, that Putin and the president of China were caught like speaking off camera, and basically what they talked about, what interests them, is that we need to just survive for a few more, decades, because then we will live forever, and longevity and so on and so forth. So in the second part, we use different types of approach to have like a new concept. Usually we think about disease or about longevity, that we will take the right pills, right? David Sinclair, we are going to take this pill, and when we become younger, we are having, Parkinson, we take levodopa, we have Alzheimer, now there is the first, very not impressive, but at least initial drug for slowing down. The question is, can we use digital interventions in our smartphone to trigger our own materials in the body, in the immune system, and in the brain, the connectivity, to heal the brain? or slow down degeneration. And this is exactly what we did. The first experiment was on people with subjective cognitive decline. It's people that have the first stages of Alzheimer's. So it's a very good predictor to Alzheimer's, but it can be reversible at this stage. And we developed several protocols, digital protocols of engagements. There were two main types of interaction and intervention. One is digital and AI-based protocols to improve the memory system, okay? Which, by the way, not all the brain degenerates at the same time, but there is hotspots. Like, for example, the first stage of the first brain area affected by Alzheimer's is hippocampus, and it's the main area that's responsible for both things. One, to remember things, like I met somebody in a conference, who he is, and so on and so forth, all our language memory. And the second part, the same structure, is responsible for building spatial maps of the environment, which we do every second. Yeah, we put our keys, we need to put we create a model of where is the keys in relation to the environment. We need to go to the toilet, we need to navigate to Karnaf, the Mensa here, yeah, and so on and so forth, okay? So we actually used this and created this very special personalized maze in which have a little bit of a tweak based on many years in hyperplasticity and brain research. So basically, the idea is that if you are playing in a game that is improving your spatial awareness and spatial memory, it's also, would have a beneficial effect on your memory system, and we measure it because we coupled it with cognitive clinical assessment, with brain scans, and also with immune system marker. We take blood from the subjects before and after they are being trained. And the idea in this maze is to use different principles from neuroscience that help us to improve these areas and look at them using MRI. So what did we did in this maze? In the first stage, they are getting a map of the maze. Because we know that half of our memory system is map-based navigation, and half is egocentric, that we actually go inside and navigate in a new environment and remember it. The map disappears, and they try to go out of the maze. Okay, they continue to practice. Each one is in its own speed and its own abilities. When they are successful, about half of the information, the visual information starts to deteriorate, and there is another sensory input coming, which is it's like a sonar, a musical sonar, that is very intuitive, and they navigate using the sense of audition, and they need to combine the half of the visual input and half auditory. Third stage, they completely close their eyes and navigate only, and there is a cloud all over the maze, and they navigate only with their eye closed, only using sound. Why do we do this? Because over many years of research, we showed that actually third of our brain, we are very visual creatures, is dedicated to vision. So all the metabolism, oxygen, and so on and so forth go there. And if you manage to complete a given task with your eyes closed, you actually speed up. You have this hyperplasticity, yeah? So that's what they do, 15 minutes every day. And what's the results? The results were quite astonishing. We found that there were improvement in their cognitive abilities, in their cognitive memory abilities. We found that their brain enhanced the connection exactly in this network that is most sensitive to age. And we found that there was a correlation. As a person managed to improve his cognitive and memory abilities and did more of the digital training and the AI-based training, their brain connectivity improved, okay? Okay, but we didn't stop there. The second part of the experiment, there is now beautiful research, mainly I think the pioneer in Israel, in the world actually, was Michal Schwartz from Reichman Institute. And what she showed is that the pharma companies and the scientific world were completely wrong in the way they try to approach Alzheimer's, okay? What happened in Alzheimer's? We have plaques in the brain of some material, we won't get into the details. This material caused death of neurons, so expedited more than 10,000 a day, yeah? In the given brain areas. They start, by the way, in the hippocampus, exactly the structure we talked about verbal memory and spatial memory. and then goes and invade the rest of the brain, and the person is gone. By the way, metabolism, oxygen, glucose is so important. Is a stroke, what is stroke? Is 20 minutes you don't get oxygen and glucose to the brain, these neurons are dying, yeah? So they put trillions of dollars to develop drugs that will dissolve these plaques, yeah, and slow them down, but it's actually too late, yeah? And what Michal Schwartz showed is that actually the disease starts with overinflammation of the immune system, okay? So for example, if you have depression, if you have chronic stress, not short-term stress. Short-term stress is good. Like now I'm in short-term stress, but if I'm doing lecture every day, like I'm doing this week, then you are going to have a chronic stress, a lot of inflammation, and this inflammation invade the brain, create inflammation there, and that's what caused the chain of events that eventually will have these bad materials in the plaques and so on and so forth. So now she developed actual drugs, but we say, okay, before taking the drugs, we can now maybe create other digital interventions, again, personalized. And one of the hopes I have here is that we use AI in a very basic way, right? We basically use what other people already created in research, but maybe there is smarter ways to create like generative ways of doing this type of intervention. So if you have any idea, contact me. We have the barcode in the end of the lecture. So basically, the bottom line was, can we change our actual physiology? Can we change our actual materials? Like we take drug, we change our actual molecule concentration in the body. Can we do it just with digital intervention, AI tailored, that you will do with your smartphone daily for another 15 minutes? So to test this, we ran a clinical trial, double-blind controlled, with control and so on and so forth. And in addition to the brain scans, we also took a blood test, and we did like a full analysis of their immune system. Before I'm showing you the results, I want to just show you, like people, when I'm talking about like using digital, you will change your molecular and how can it be possible? So I want to give you two type of experiments that were done much before us, and it's kind of one of the interventions. I don't have time to get into all the tricks and protocols that we have, but just to give you the gist of it. So what is the gist of it? You're all familiar by the classic experiment of Pavlov, right? So what Pavlov did, he gave a steak to the dog, have the bell, and showed that after a few conditioning trial, he can ring the bell and actually change the saliva. It secretes now just to the bell, the hormones that cause hunger, and all the physiology of the dog. So everybody knows about the experiment, but there was actually a follow-up experiment. And this follow-up experiment, what the researcher did was to couple now the bell with something that is similar to morphium in our body, but for dogs, yeah, it's like a... And the question was, can we, by doing this conditioning, release more endogenous analgesic and reduce pain? And that's exactly what they showed. And in the third experiment, I think this is the most getting closer to what we are doing, basically what they did was to couple tapioca, which is like, it's like the bell, yeah, it's like a placebo, yeah, the guinea pig in this case took, or rats, it doesn't matter, and couple that with giving it together with the medicine that triggers our immune system. Without getting into the details, let's say we have a medicine that activates or changes something in your immune system. And now after that, they gave the tapioca without the medicine and looked whether it would release the same, materials that are similar to the drug, and that's exactly what they showed, okay? So basically, we had all these kind of tricks that each day a different set is coming, it's personalized to each person, and so on and so forth. And we measured 3 things in these people with subjective cognitive decline, age 55 to 60. I'm finishing in 2 minutes. One, we measured their cognitive emotional state. So we measured with clinical scale their depression level, the stress level, resilience, and so on and so forth. And we saw there is a decrease that is faster and more efficient than the state-of-the-art SSRIs and antidepressant drugs, okay? The second thing we saw is that the connectivity in the brain area that govern the immune system, in this case, the insula in its connectivity pattern, enhanced in the main group versus the control group, okay? So we improve the way the brain controls the immune system. And then the last part, we run a whole battery of all the cytokines that we have in our immune systems, like which is a measure of the inflammation. And we saw a reduction in several key inflammation markers. In this case, it's IL-17. And what is really remarkable is by doing this personalization with the digital, some people improved much more their clinical outcome and their connectivity in the insula. And then subjects like this that managed to do even more than the average, their level, the reduction of the inflammatory cytokine was bigger. Okay? And this was all cited. So basically, to summarize all this, I think I would summarize here. If artificial intelligence and digital is used correctly, it's all about the devil is in the details. Then we have actually an amazing opportunity to use this type of intervention to cure diseases, to improve our longevity. We saw actually that the brain become younger in a few months in several weeks of training. Yeah? So their marker, like the telomere marker, become younger and healthier. And unfortunately, I don't have time to show you the first trial, but we just finished a phase 2 trial with testing Parkinson patients that took levodopa together with the digital and AI protocols. Another group which used levodopa, the main drug, over 80% uses this, of having Parkinson, use a placebo app, so an app that doesn't do all these tricks and magic. And the result was that we, using neurologists checking the UPDRS, is the main measure, clinical measure to measure the state of the Parkinson and how severe it is, we managed to have an effect that is almost like doubling the effect of the drug alone. So in a way, this is the future of medicine. And for example, if tomorrow we are going to have a substance that slows down aging, yeah, or increases longevity, like the type of experiments and work that David Sinclair from Harvard is doing, and we will couple it with this type of digital information, where we can earn another 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, I don't know how much, and then we have this feedback loop of having new drugs develop and having this protocol develop, and every time, like Putin and Cheng Fei, be able to postpone our aging. And in a way, it's also a revolution. We're the first to have this concept of hybrid drugs, and basically use this concept in order to improve health and improve the case. I want to thank my partners at RMP, Or Shoval and Michal Tzur, the two CEOs, Merav Catalunya, which is the head of neuroscience, that worked with me closely on all this work, and Daphne Israel, which is the new amazing direct lab manager of the Brain Cognition and Technology Institute here in Reichman. So it's a collaboration of the two entities. And if you want to be in touch, scan this LinkedIn code. Thank you so much.